to the lesson about wind. We are going to cover gusts, persistent wind shifts, oscillating wind shifts, and geographic wind. Okay? So, I'm just going to go down here and see this part. So, does anyone know what a gust is?
I know.
Yeah.
It's when you're sailing along and then you have this really fast burst of wind that just like knocks you right over.
Okay. So, can you tell me what a gust looks like? So, here's my boat.
I can tell you what it looks like.
Shoot. Okay. Anyways, so here's our interesting boat.
Very interesting mess.
Here's our sail. Yes, our mast is special. What does it look like?
Well, the water goes all ripply and dark, and when it gets closer to your boat,
Ripply.
and dark, and then when it gets right up to your boat, it gusts your boat, and then
Moves.
closer and closer.
What does it mean by it gusts the boat? Explain what you mean.
You get like a burst of wind, so the wind hits your sails a lot harder, and then you have to be ready.
Like that?
The wind,
Not
not
the
the
wind.
water.
Okay, so this is just gonna be the wind for this is just gonna be the wind. So what do you do if you're in strong winds and you see a gust coming down the water towards you? Does anyone have any ideas?
I think I know.
You think you know? Okay.
Yes, I do. You lean out more, you hike out more, and if that's not enough, then you let your sails out a bit.
Okay. That is very good. So if you, just like what Sadie said, if you see these waves coming towards you, you've got to really be aware of your situation. So if the winds are light, let's say around 5 knots or so, and you're barely moving, then you see this gust coming and you're like, hallelujah, I can finally move. So what you do is you stand here and you pull in your sail closer. Okay. But if there's strong winds, so let's say for CANsail 3 or 4 around 15, 17 knots, you see that and you go, oh my goodness, that is more wind I have to cope with. So you have to let out your sail instead of letting it in. So let your sail out slightly and be aware that you'll probably have to hike unless you're a significant, you have a significant weight. Or if you're trapping. Yeah, trapping is really fun. But we'll talk about that in a later lesson. So we have now gone over gusts. So now we're going to go to persistent wind shifts. Does anyone have any idea of what we call a persistent wind shift?
That's when the wind is gradually changing direction over hours.
Yeah. And there's a second definition of this. Does anyone else have any ideas?
I'll take a guess.
Okay.
It's when the wind persistently changes.
Well,
Because it's in the name, persistent.
that's kind of what Mom said there.
Yeah.
But yes, you're close. So let's say this is going to be the first definition. So the first definition is that you go out, let's say at 10 a.m., and the wind is here. It's coming from your right, and you're going up, and you're on pretty much reach there. So you're going up, and then at 11, you notice the wind shifted slightly over towards the left. So that's 11. So then at noon, you have to pretty much change course because it's still shifting over and you're starting to left. You go in this direction. And then there's 2 p.m. and then there's 3 p.m. So this is an example of it being gradual. So it's persistently moving in one direction. So what do you think we can do to adjust the sails or to sail in a persistent wind shift? Yeah?
Yeah, time.
Yeah. What else do you do? Is there any flags or anything you should look at when you're doing this?
Nope.
Are you sure?
Nope.
You can look on shore and see what direction the flags or smoke from chimneys are
Or you have flags on your boat.
for your
Oh, the
telltales.
telltales, yeah. So one way to know, because at Britannia, where we sail, there is a really big Canadian flag there. So if you look back, normally you can see the way it's shifting, and you can try to gauge your course based on that. So there's a second definition of persistent wind shift. So can anyone give me another guess?
It's when it changes more quickly.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, that's pretty much it. So let's say it starts here. Okay, so there's 10 a.m. And then suddenly it switches to, let's say, about here. And let's say this is at 11, and then this ends to the end of the day. This is also called a persistent wind shift because it changes and it's there for a significant amount of time. So normally, if you look up the weather that day, it will tell you that the wind's going to come from this direction and then it's going to change later that day. So, any questions about that? Anything so far? Okay. So, we're going to continue to probably one of the more difficult ones to sail in, oscillating wind shifts. Any ideas what oscillating means? Persistent?
I have a question. What does oscillating mean?
Oscillating means shifting. So
why don't we just call it a shifting wind shift?
because oscillating is a more sophisticated word for it.
Alright. Go with
Like a pendulum?
Yeah, why don't you just call it the swinging thing?
that. The swingy wind shift.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing you can say in your mind, but a lot of are going to say oscillating wind shift. So you're going to sail along, you're sailing along like that. Here's your map and your sail. And the wind is coming from this direction again. So you're sailing along, and then suddenly it moves here. And you are starting to lull. What do you think just happened? Yeah?
You got knocked.
Yeah, very good. So that's one of the things that we can call this. So then after that, you can tack over, right?
Yep.
But how long should you stay on this other tack? Yeah? A long amount of time?
No,
or
a
short?
very short amount of time because the wind's probably going to shift back to normal.
Okay. So can you give me a guess on how long an oscillating wind shift lasts?
1 to 10 minutes.
Yes, that's very good. So, oops, where did I think of? So 1 through 10 minutes. And can you imagine how this would affect you if you're racing?
Yep.
Yeah.
Have to replot your course for 10 minutes.
Well, it depends on how long it lasts, but you definitely have to be aware. So if your buoy's here and you're trying to sail and this wind suddenly shifts, then you're going to be in trouble. So you have to be careful and try and tack over a median, which is if the wind is coming from, let's take another color. Can you see this yellow? This yellow color here. If the wind is normally coming from here, and then suddenly, let's get another color, it shifts to over here, you have to be aware that it will probably shift back to its original course in a short amount of time, or it'll shift again. So you can't go too far over. You have to kind of stay in the middle of these wind shifts. So we're just going to go back to black here. So any questions about that? No. Okay, so the next one is something that we don't generally see in Britannia, but we see in larger bodies of water, where there is a lot of mountains or there's a lot of turns or twists. Do you have any idea what a geographical wind shift is?
I do. Yeah, it's a wind shift that's related to geography, and geography is physical stuff like mountains
Oh, really?
and bends and the river or
Okay.
lake.
So here is our beautiful mountain. And here, I'm going to show you 2 examples of how this works. Here's a mountain, and here's our lake. Okay? So let's say you're out in Lake Louise, where there are mountains everywhere. And when the wind blows, the wind cannot go through the mountain. The mountain is not hollow. So the wind has to go around, right? Can anyone tell me why wind does not go over the mountain?
Because it's lazy. Takes the easiest course.
Yeah.
Course path of least resistance.
Yes. So it bends around. So you have to be aware that even if the wind's coming from, I don't know, this direction, when you're sailing along, see that? You're sailing along, it's beautiful, and you're on the run, and then you get too close to this mountain, and the wind shifts, and suddenly you jibe or you tack, and you just don't know what happened. It's probably because of this obstacle effect. So I'm going to show you another example of that. Further down. So here is like a turn. Okay? Here is, what's that some water? It's got some water color. That's fine. Here is your water. And then what you have to do is you have to sail around this bend and you have to end up here. Okay? So the wind is going from this direction, from the top of the page down. So how do you think the wind is going to go around this obstacle based on what I just told you? This is a fairly high hill. You can't really see it, but it's high. How is the wind going to be different? Going down? How is it going to go around? So take the mountain principle and just look at it from a different angle. Yeah.
So the wind's gonna face more
It's gonna change direction.
that way.
It's gonna change, is it more,
Is it going to go like that?
yes,
Okay, yeah.
it's gonna change direction.
Yeah, it's just going to kind of curve slightly because it cannot go through it, and chances are this is fairly high up. So it's like 100 meters high or something. So the wind's going to try and go around it. So you have to be aware that when you're tacking in here, you can tack like that, but if you go too far over or too close to the land, then you're going to have to go on a different tack than you did all the way down. So you have to be aware of that. So there you go. To get to this area, excellent stop. All right, so now that we've talked about that, are there any questions? No? Yeah. So next we are going to do our little game. So I have some cue cards down here, and you can sort them out based on what they say. So read them out loud, and then find its pair.
Don't stay too long on one tack
For
for a long or a long period of time.
That's the I know this. It's oscillating wind shift.
Yeah, so put that pair on the ground. What's next?
Shift of wind that lasts 1 to 10 minutes.
Okay, so this is from Montezorda because you've got lots of
That's oscillating wind shift.
as well. Yeah.
Dark water coming towards a boat. That is a gust. Ah.
Mountain in way of wind. That's going to be a geographic wind shift.
Wind shifts slowly in one direction. Persistent wind shifts.
Very
There we
good.
go. I win.
Yes, you win. Okay. So now that we're finished the lesson, I'm going to ask all of you to get ready to go out sailing and try the geographical wind areas we have around here.
Alright.